Nadeem with PCSN. So today I'm going to get a little technical. We are going to talk about migrating your workloads from your on-prem infrastructure into the cloud. Now, a lot of times, and I've seen this a lot of IT companies and MSPs, they come in, they look at your workloads, quote you something, you accept the quote, and then they log in and they start migrating workloads. There is no assessment done. There is no analysis done on what kind of capacity your cloud workloads may require. I recommend doing things a little differently. The first step of any project should be the assessment. And we use several tools to do the assessment, and I want to show you one such tool that we use. Maybe that will make sense to you. So here we have the assessment tool. It's already run against a demo environment, and this is the result that we get. I'm not going to go into all the details, but you can see how it gives us a lot of good information here. So for example, we want to know not just how many sockets or cores you have for CPU, but what is the actual use in your environment. And this assessment, usually we run it for multiple days. We want to get a good picture for when your workload is at peak, when your workload is at minimum, whatever your capacity levels are, your network throughput, your IOPS. Now, if I was to go ahead and come in and just migrate stuff over and not take into account what IOPS I need, which I need, 95% of it, then I cannot design the cloud system properly. And that's where a lot of times issues happen and people get a bad taste in their mouth. It's like, oh yeah, we tried to go to the cloud, but it didn't work. It was this, that, or the other. And that's because nobody did an assessment. People migrated to the cloud. They did not even know what IOPS the on-prem systems were using. So there's no way that they can design the system appropriately. And when you're moving to the cloud, you have to take these things into consideration. So IOPS measures how much is your performance. You also need to take into account your rights. So for example, not just capacity, that's easy, right? A lot of times people will just look at it, oh, you're using 13.15 terabytes, no big deal, we'll give you this capacity. But the problem is they're not taking into account how fast you need to read or write from those disks, from the drives. And with certain cloud providers, there is a limit on what speed you're going to get for read and writes onto the hard drive. So you need to design your system appropriately and have that many additional drives in a RAID set to get the level of performance that your workloads need. The other thing is where we can see the peak memory usage. So that's also good to know, just because that way you can give the appropriate scale the virtual machine in the cloud appropriately. So this is what we have down here in IOPS. Now, just by looking at this screen right here, I can see a couple of things. I can see, like right here on this server, people are having issues. Look at that latency. So this is the latency, right? Look at the latency, 64%. That is 12.48 millisecond latency. I know users were complaining, hey, this machine is slow. Now, when I'm going to migrate these workloads, I can take into account the latency for this system. And the way this system works is it just has a lot of reads or writes. So I just need to give more spindles, or I'm trying not to use technical terms. So I'm going to use more drives, because in the cloud, each drive has a fixed amount of max IOPS. So you need to have multiple drives that make up of one volume to get the level of IOPS you need. And that's why design is critical when migrating to the cloud. In the old days, when you had on-prem hardware only, it wasn't that big of a deal. There's really, you need more performance, you get a faster drive subsystem or a better RAID card, wherever. But now you have access to the world's best hardware. The difference is how you design it, because it's not that you can get very good performance. I mean, in the cloud, you can, pay a lot more money on a monthly basis and get the highest performing VM. That's not the trick. The trick is to get the performance you need at the right price, right? Like somebody once told me, we can run a line from Houston to Hawaii. That's not the problem. Who's going to pay for it? That's the problem. So, and we see this across all kinds of customer base, like from the very small SMBs to the large enterprises, right? It's not just about the performance, it's the performance at the right price. So in this case, I know there are some issues here. There's, that people are going to run into. Now, let me switch over to another screen here, and I will show you. Now we just sorted it by network throughput. So before it was by IOPS, and now it's by network throughput. So network throughput, this is 40%. So that's pretty high. So we need to accommodate for that whenever we are designing the system. Some of the other things that we can see, performance metrics. So now we can see here, what are some of the there are some physical servers and some virtual servers, but what are the hypervisor, the OS for the hypervisor? We can see some IOPS, some of the peaks. So these things we need to take into consideration. Your throughputs, total capacity, no big deal. Anybody can find that out, right? Your average daily writes, what's your read-write ratios? Those are going to come in real handy. And your network throughputs as well. So that's just a sample of what you need to decide how to design your cloud systems. Just coming in and eyeballing the servers and looking at how much capacity you're using, that's not going to get you anything. You need to run a tool that will collect information over time. It's not a point in time picture, because the point in time problem is, let's say you came in to look at their existing on-prem setup, and you look at it at, let's say 4 p.m. You have a snapshot at that point in time. That's not giving you the full picture. To get the full picture, you need to collect this information over a period of time. Now, in certain situations, we will collect this information for about a week. Minimum, we need to collect it for 3 days, and by 3 days, I don't mean over the weekend. You need to be during 3 working days. That way, you get a clearer picture of how many resources you really need. So, if you are thinking about moving over to the cloud, or even if you're going to do your on-prem to on-prem migration, let's say you're coming up for a hardware upgrade cycle, you need to do a longer term assessment, collect information, collect metrics, and then design your system. That's the only way that you can have success in your project. Otherwise you're guessing at things. In my experience, guessing, it doesn't matter how much experience you have, guessing isn't the answer. Get to the source, get the actual facts, get the metrics, and then design based on numbers, because numbers don't lie. Hopefully that'll help you out if you are thinking about upgrading or migrating your infrastructure. And it's like, think of it like any other business decision. Any decision that you make, you base it on metrics, you base it on numbers. You try not to base it on gut feel or how you feel a certain day, or things like that, because at the end of the day, the only thing that we can rely on are the numbers. And if we can collect these numbers, the metrics, then design our system appropriately, that's the way to do it. Now, when we do this, we make a recommendation. So, and that's where the secret sauce comes into play, right? Like, if you are using certain amount of IOPS, about what percent of that do we need to design for? Because yeah, you can design for the absolute peak IOPS you ever hit, but then it'll cost you a little more, right? I mean, your cloud, especially when you're going to the cloud, it will cost you more. And the thing about the cloud is that's a recurring cost. So if it's costing you even 20 cents more per hour, and times that by year, so you're running these workloads for, let's say, 3 years, that can add up. So you need to design things appropriately, and that's where the assessments come in, and that's where some of our secret sauce comes in, like what percent of peak do you need to account for and you need to design for. And of course, there are certain other design elements that we take into account. So for example, maybe you have one server during slow period, and then around Christmas time, things get hectic. So maybe around Christmas time, we bring on 2 or 3 additional machines to help with that extra workload, and we automate these kind of things. So when for example, certain thresholds are met, we spin up additional machines, and then when certain lower thresholds are met, we shut down these additional machines, and we automate all of this so that you're paying the minimum cost, but you're getting the performance that you need. In other words, best of both worlds, right? So hopefully that helps you out. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. And if you like this video, go ahead and subscribe. And let me know if these videos are better than just more generic business type videos, because I can make more of these. I try not to make too technical videos, because a lot of our audience is business decision makers, and they don't want to get into the nitty gritty technology. They want to know what will work in their business and just some general understanding of things. Everybody have a great day.